Well, Levi Haines and Keegan O'Toole certainly lived up to the billing, but is that a guarantee to be a rematch in the NCAA finals? Not necessarily.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and thanks so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. My name is Zach Seyko. I am your host of the show. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Let me know your thoughts, reactions down in the comments section to the Journeymen Duals, as that is what we are talking here. Leading off with Levi Haines and Keegan O'Toole. Was that a takedown and sudden victory? Did Levi Haines have a case? Josh Barr collecting another win over a perennial All-American. And Braeden Davis, is he an outside contender for the NCAA title at 133 pounds, plus some other takeaways from the Journeymen Duals. I want to begin with Levi Haines versus Keegan O'Toole. I mean, that one stings. Levi Haines, it lived up to the billing with Keegan O'Toole, and that was Haynes' first NCAA loss since March 2023, when he lost to Austin O'Connor as a true freshman in that championship bout at 157. As far as my overall thoughts on the match here, I felt like that could have gone either way. Levi Haines had some good attacks. Keegan O'Toole obviously had the better counters in the moment, but it was O'Toole's defense that was the difference, because Haines was aggressive. He was certainly trying to go for that kill shot, but that's what makes elite wrestlers, and why he is a multi-champion in Keegan O'Toole. O'Toole would just not let go of that single leg in that sudden victory. And when O'Toole stood up, that's when things had taken a turn with that sudden victory scramble there. So let's talk about that, because I wish we could get 7 minutes of just them scrambling. It's a lot of chess back and forth, and then the action in that sudden victory period. But it was worth the wait, albeit too short. Did Haines have a case with that challenge where he won? Certainly, that's the biggest debate point, because O'Toole won 4-1 in sudden victory for anybody that missed the result. He had two legs briefly in, but nothing was called, and then Penn State challenged it, and the call stood on the mat. It was a smart step over. Haines went for it, had two boots, but no control was called. And unfortunately, I think that's the correct call. Now, I am no wrestling rules expert. I want to preface it there. So my answer is not going to be the best compared to some other people, but it seems like that is the case, that most people are in agreement that the refs got it right. And unfortunately, that leads to a loss for Haines here. My reasoning for it is that Haines doesn't look like he has total full control here. Haines is still posting with the left arm, and then O'Toole had a hook on the other side. So if Haines even if he had control in that instance, he didn't have it for long enough, and it wasn't clear, decisive control. It still felt like that was a neutral position for both of them. Not a called stalemate, but neither wrestler had control in that moment. O'Toole is just as strong as Haines, anybody that didn't notice, but that certainly is what stood out to me, because it is so rare to see. Usually Haines is the aggressor, is the one that is in more control in terms of overall bodily strength, but to see someone match up, and honestly, that grip strength, that is really what made the difference there for O'Toole, because Haines kept trying to, get out of the single leg that O'Toole had. And for O'Toole to just not let go, the grip strength, allowing him to get his revenge because of the World Team Trial where Haines won decisively, and I took a lot of stock into that. Folk style is much more different than freestyle, as we all know here, but Haines showed a lot of progress moving up to 174 in the way that he's been dominating. I mean, this isn't anything new here. So O'Toole to come out on top, I am more or less fairly surprised. Like I said, this could have been a coin flip. I feel like if Haines is able to complete that move where he did step over in that sudden victory period, but that's what makes elite wrestlers elite wrestlers. Now, I do want to pivot, because are we going to get to see a guaranteed rematch in the NCAA final at 174? Some of you might say, well, yeah, why are we even questioning that? We do have to question it, because it is not a guarantee. It is not a guarantee. I would say it is a three-man race, and that third man, Dean Hamity, former Wisconsin wrestler, now with David Taylor at Oklahoma State. I think he is right there, right there. The way that he's performing, maybe it's the David Taylor effect. Maybe it's just, another year of wrestling under his belt. Maybe it's a combination of both. But Dean Hamady does look like he's on another level. Seeing him wrestle against Mitchell Messenbrink at 165 and through that 165-pound part of the postseason, it seems like Hamady has taken that next step and seems to be on par with Levi Haines and Keegan O'Toole at 174. Feel free to disagree with me down in the comments section. You're part of this conversation too. But my point being is that it is not a guarantee. I think Hamady is either close or right there with the two of them. And then it ultimately depends on the seeding here. So Keegan O'Toole now has the advantage to be the number 1 seed. If everything kind of plays out accordingly, some people might expect O'Toole to win out and defeat Hamady when they meet in the Oklahoma State versus Missouri dual meet. Or you also have the Big 10 title, the Big 10 tournament, Big 12, the Big 12 tournament between Hamady and O'Toole, where they will meet for a second time. So that's really going to shake up the seeding here, whereas Haines will not wrestle either of them. So it's really up to Hamady and O'Toole. And I wonder how that seeding is going to be if Hamady wins both of those matches, or O'Toole wins one, Hamady wins the other, because then I got to imagine that Haines and Hamady are going to be the 2 and the 3 seed, and then those two will meet in the semifinal. And I would like to think that Haines is going to be the favorite, but even if Haines is the favorite, it's not going to be overwhelming, right? It is going to be a coin toss because, like I said, I think Hamady is right there. He's not a distant third wrestler, and he very well might beat O'Toole in either of those matchups, in the dual meet or the Big 12 tournament. So unless those rankings change, it seems like it's going to be O'Toole at 1, Haines at 2, Hamady at 3, and you really might get a shakeup to a point if Hamady does win, and that's my point. If Hamady does win those ones against O'Toole, then Hamady would be number 1. O'Toole would have the advantage over Haines, and that would be the 2 and the 3 seed, and then they would meet in the semifinal. So we'll see how that ultimately plays out there. But that's why it's not a guarantee at 174 pounds. If it is in your mind, let me know down in the comments section. Be a part of the discussion. Josh Barr had a lot to prove at the Journeymen Duals here. A second top 10, a top 5 victory even in Nashville, continuing to show why he is a legit contender at 197. We'll talk about it more after a word from our sponsors. And today's show is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing better to do during the holidays than going to live events because you get to create those memories with friends and family. And Game Time is focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better, and it's the perfect gift during the holidays as well. Perfect last second gift if you need some ideas. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks, and that makes getting tickets for live events even easier. To see your favorite teams play even easier than before. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff, so you only see incredible deals on incredible seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. And there are tickets now posted on Game Time for the Fiesta Bowl, Penn State versus Boise State. You can go to gametime.co on your browser or go to the Game Time app, and those Game Time picks are already sorted for you. I have them pulled up right here. A super deal for the Fiesta Bowl in one of the main corners, section 124, row 34, all in pricing, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. $280 per ticket for the Fiesta Bowl. If you're just looking for the lowest available price on Game Time. Terrace level, section 419, row 20, all in pricing, $227 per ticket. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. 2 top 10 wins in 1 month for Josh Barr against 2 perennial All-America contenders. And honestly, Stephen Little of Arkansas Little Rock definitely is a contender for an NCAA title here. It's a loaded 197-pound class. But first, Josh Barr checking a box against Michael Beard of Lehigh, former Penn State wrestler, and then to go up against Stephen Little, who is top 5 in his own right. Barr coming in as the number 7 wrestler at 197 per Intermat, and then Little being the number 5 wrestler. So now he picks up a top 5 victory, but both of them classified as top 10 as well. 2 All-Americans guaranteed. I think it's safe to say that Stephen Little and Michael Beard will be All-American by the end of the season. Barr is as elite as advertised here. If you don't know already, Little being one of the best defensive wrestlers in the country, and Josh Barr just being able to go the distance. And I think that's what makes Barr so competitive and why he is in contention and should be thought of as a legitimate contender at 197. Not a fringe wrestler, not somebody that, hey, with a little bit of luck. No, Josh Barr is doing this now. This run that he's on, if it was coming around the Big Ten tournament later on in the season, I'd say, okay, I understand we still need to see more from him. But we're seeing all of this now. These top 10 victories against All-America type of wrestlers and national title contenders in Stephen Little, that is happening in the middle of December. We're not even close to March yet, and this is the kind of work, this is the kind of resume that Josh Barr is putting together. 4-1 victory, in sudden victory, and Stephen Little just looked tired, and that's what Josh Barr is able to do. He's able to wear you down. And the difference is, I don't think that anybody can compete with Barr's stamina. The way that he's able to outlast these top-ranked wrestlers when they're just supposed to be as fit and as sound physically as he is, and Barr looks like he's going into the start of the second period, and these other wrestlers, in the case of Beard and Little, look like, yeah, they're at the tail end of the match, and he just wears them down and waits for that moment, and it almost looks like he is too quick. So that combination of speed and energy that gets him through these matches, I mean, Michael Beard was absolutely gassed, at least Stephen Little, because of his defensive prowess, made it interesting into that sudden victory period, but Michael Beard had no chance, and that's why it ended up as a major decision, because Barr was at the top with his energy, and Beard had no response. Now, we did not get to see Rocky Elam and Barr because of Elam's injury recovery, so we'll see how that goes because he is a top 5 wrestler in his own right, and certainly when he is fully healthy can be a contender at 197. But I am going to continue to pound this drum, and all of you should as well, because Barr is right there with the best of them at 197. Yes, that even includes an AJ Ferrari. That includes a Jacob Cardenas. Barr is right there and has as good of a chance as anybody else in this bracket to win at 197 pounds. This kind of reminds me of Mitchell Messenbrink last season, where Jeff Byers, voice of Penn State Wrestling, he and I on this show talked about it and said, hey, Mitchell Messenbrink, it kind of has this similar arc where young Penn State wrestler, not exactly a veteran, and of course, Messenbrink transferred in, but this is the second year of competitive NCAA wrestling for both of them respectively in comparison for the conversation. And my point being is that Messenbrink continued to he was doubted. It's just, okay, well, he's good, but is he really that elite level? Can he be an NCAA title contender? Can he be a true, and we see him as an All-America type of wrestler, but not as an NCAA title contender. And honestly, if it wasn't for the not knowing the score, frankly, there's a very good chance that Mitchell Messenbrink defeats David Carr in that 165-pound title, So not enough people outside of Penn State bought into Messenbrink's rise, and I feel like it's the same case for Barr. Barr has arrived, and he's only going to get better. That is the most important part of all of this, is that Barr is doing this in the present in December. If this was happening in February, early March, as they were approaching the postseason and going into the Big Ten tournament, that's understandable, where you can have your doubts of saying, okay, well, Barr's just, he's on a hot streak, right? This is happening now. First time being a starter, and it's only his second season, and he's bumped up a weight class. That's what's even more impressive about all of this for Josh Barr, is he's doing this when this isn't even his natural weight class. He is supposed to be the 184-pound guy. Carter Starachi's there. Carter Starachi's better. He moves up to 197, and honestly, he looks better suited to be there. Now, I know that Josh Barr would probably say that he's more comfortable at 184. Maybe he likes 190. He did mention that he doesn't have to cut as much weight. Being at 197, it's not as tough of a cut. He gets to kind of, train freely and diet freely and everything else. So maybe 197 is a home for Josh Barr, even after Carter Starachi leaves at 184 and vacates that weight class. So we will see in due time, but I don't know how you can move him from 97 down to 84 if he's going to be a guaranteed All-America wrestler, a guaranteed, honestly, I think a guaranteed semifinalist. That's how confident I am here. championship, anything can happen because this is a loaded 197-pound class. But my point being is that do not look past Barr just because it's his first year starting. He's moved up a weight class. None of those things matter in comparison because he's starting to put these results together and looks like the better wrestler in comparison to guys who are top 5 in the country, as shown once again. Now, speaking of NCAA title contention, Braeden Davis at 133 pounds, ranked number 10 going into this matchup against Nasir Bailey of Little Rock. It was a gritty 1-0 finish, but I think it proves that Davis it isn't a fringe wrestler, a fringe All-American. No, if things go well for him, he is only going to get better. He can contend for an NCAA title at 133. Let's talk about it more on the other side of this break. And today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets. That's right, $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. You can bet on which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and it's thrilling, and there's so many other things than that. Passing yards, rushing yards, tackles, field goals made, you name it, it's all over at FanDuel.com. And if we look over at FanDuel.com, you can see the lines for Penn State versus Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl. Penn State is a heavy 10.5-point favorite, minus 400 on the money line. If you're thinking Boise State, plus 310. The total is set at 52.5. If you like those lines, you can bet them over at FanDuel.com. And remember, you will get started with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet over at FanDuel.com. Remember, you can make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And we'll finish up with Braeden Davis and Nasir Bailey. I told everybody in the Journeymen Duals preview with Jeff talking about Braeden Davis, I expected him to win. Do not be surprised. Do not be thrown off here because Braeden Davis, even though he is ranked 10th at 133 pounds presently, he is just as good as a Nasir Bailey, who was top 5 going into this one. It was a gritty 1-0 finish, so I don't know how much you can take away from this and say, but I am going to take away from the fact that winning 1-0, a win is a win. And you're doing that against somebody who was an All-American wrestler a season ago, and honestly, somebody who has an outside shot. Look, we know this is Ryan Crookham's class. We know that, but Davis's defense makes him an outside contender at 133. I won't go and say and have that same bit of confidence that I do for a Josh Barr and say that, hey, he's right in the thick of it. No, I still need to see some more from Braeden Davis, but I like what I'm seeing early on, is my point. The way that Davis is wrestling, there's no concerns with the knee or anything that he sustained early on in the season in the regular season opener. My point is that Davis is showing me that he's come a long way from his true freshman season now into his true sophomore season, because last season wrestled, I don't want to say scared, because these guys are wrestling at the Division I level and the best of the best. So there's no such thing as scared wrestling in this case, but certainly passively kind of waiting for the opponent. And I know we get a gritty 1-0 finish here, but it was across the board is where Davis, it didn't really matter the opponent. It just seemed like he was a little too patient at times a season ago. And that's why I key in on that Crookham match when they did wrestle, because it's not like Crookham outclassed him. Davis was right there. Davis was the aggressor. And Crookham ultimately did win 4-0. But it's not like it's not like Crookham was that much further ahead. It's not like Davis was completely overmatched. No, a couple more shots if he's able to land them, and that's why Crookham is number 1 in this class at 133. But Davis is right there. He's not far off from a possible upset of a top-ranked opponent here. 133 is going to be a very telling group. I think it's comparable to 197 because you have guys like a Drake Ayala at Iowa, of course. You have a Lucas Bird at Illinois. So I know there are other names to watch for here, and I wouldn't put Braeden Davis in that same category just yet. But if it's close, and depending on how things break, that's what I mean. Davis gets a lucky break, or who says he even needs luck? What I'm trying to say is that Davis is close, and if Bird makes the wrong move, hypothetically, right, because he might see him in the Big Ten tournament. You definitely know that Penn State wrestling Iowa in the Bryce Jordan Center, that Drake Ayala and Braeden Davis is going to be one of the matches circled on that lineup card there. And Davis is not far behind. Davis is absolutely not far behind here. So I like that I've seen more aggression from Davis. He looks smarter, more cerebral out there compared to his freshman season. And he was already showing those strengths as a true freshman, but now those are continuing to grow. They're continuing to get better. To talk about the actual match itself, because 1-0, it's just kind of a lot. I mean, Davis's defense. You were going to get elite defense one way or another from Braeden Davis. But I think Bailey made an interesting choice to take neutral in period 3, knowing that I kind of one way or another, you're darned if you do, darned if you don't situation where Bailey, it seems like he does not trust himself to be on bottom. He feels like he's not effective enough, or he knows that Davis, riding ability, that it's just going to be 1-0 regardless. So he feels more comfortable and confident on his feet, and that's fine. But when you have 2 periods of work and none of your attacks, none of your shots are working, you might as well give yourself a chance. Something that's fine and all, but this has now cost him some matches. And for Bailey, he's going to adapt. He's going to adjust. I don't think they're going to continue to do this, but including this Davis match, we've now seen multiple times where Nasir Bailey says, all right, I'm going to go neutral here, and then he ends up losing a close one. So we'll see how that plays out, because Davis and Bailey could very well see each other in the postseason. But in the present, right now, I like the way that things are trending for Braeden Davis. He has a greater chance of making the NCAA. Honestly, I think a solid projection is the NCAA semifinals. I think he's right in the thick of it there, and now that means that he's a top 4 wrestler in the class. But kind of like the arc of a Josh Barr is that Davis is a second-year wrestler, a second-year starter even. He is only going to get better. So he's close to Crookham. He's defeating Nasir Bailey. He's doing that now in the present. He's getting hot now. Imagine what he can do at the end of February going into March. Other takeaways from the Journeymen Duals here, just absolute dominance by the Penn State wrestling team as a team comprehensively, back-to-back-to-back shutouts. And it would have been a 4th one, but unfortunately, Haynes' loss gave the 3-point decision to, Missouri and Keegan O'Toole here. It's not that it was really fair over the past few seasons, but it's really getting out of hand. Because when you look at Wyoming, and I know they were banged up, but Little Rock and Missouri. Now Little Rock's ranked 16th, but for the sake of the conversation, 2 top 15 teams in intermat dual rankings, and Missouri being a top 10 team in terms of tournament rankings, and Penn State shuts out Binghamton after Wyoming, and then Little Rock as an up-and-coming program. This is a respectable program, and Penn State blanks them, and then to nearly blank Missouri to win 41-3 like that. I mean, come on. It's just absolute utter dominance, and it's only getting more out of control. I mean, good for Penn State, but we're going to have to wait for that next challenge. I'm eager to see, how close is Nebraska going to make it when they're out in Lincoln there? Those Bryce Jordan Center dual meets against Michigan and Iowa, because you're going to get more of the same, to the point where Penn State isn't even giving up a decision, or it's rare that they give up a decision. Like I said, Keegan O'Toole and Levi Haines could have been easily flipped. And then that's another shutout against a top 10 tournament team, a top 15 dual team. It's just not fair, but that's the program that Cale Sanderson has built. So they deserve all the credit in the world to this point in time. That's just Penn State wrestling in a nutshell. That's going to do it here for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions, recapping the Journeymen Duals. They're on a little bit of a break, but January 10th, that's when they resume and return to Rec Hall to face the Michigan State Spartans. Depending on what lineup Penn State rolls out, if they have any backups that are going to wrestle, we'll see. They're probably going to wrestle at full strength because they need to get the matches. If that's the case, you can expect another shutout there to open up Big Ten conference play. Thank you so much for checking out this episode. I really appreciate it. If you left a comment Be a part of the conversation. Please leave a like on this episode. Share it with friends and family. Have a very Merry Christmas. Happy holidays from all of us here at the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for the support. That is what I am most grateful for, all of you during this holiday season. And I will talk to you very soon, once again, as we discuss more Penn State sports, football, basketball, wrestling, you name it, here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And once again, thanks so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas to each and every one of you out there. I hope you have a safe and happy holiday season with your friends and family. Spend it with your loved ones. For your second listen and watch, check out Locked On Big Ten with host Craig Sheeman. Craig puts the Big Ten first when everyone else overlooks it, and it seems to be that way with all of this discourse around the college football playoff, but Craig does a good job showing support to the best conference out there, the Big Ten Conference. You can find Locked On Big Ten available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, and it's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.